Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor and he
is Adrian Lacey. Oh, sorry.
I never know who's supposed to do that.
We didn't rehearse the top. No. Oh, darling, I can't work like this. I can't work with him.
If you've not joined us before, you have no idea what you're missing, or maybe you do, and that's why you haven't joined us before.
Yes. Or will ever again, but let's travel, hopefully.
Let me briefly describe how this podcast works. Does this podcast work? Yes, it does work. It does. And briefly, we sit for about half an hour and we have a chat about comedy. We choose a comedy show between us. Well, what happens is I choose one week and he chooses one the next week, and we kind of foist that comedy episode on the other one, don't we, really? I mean, sometimes it's something we've seen, both of us have seen a little bit of. Sometimes
you make it sound very unappealing, like... Foisting is a loaded term, as well you know.
Oh, when I was a kid, that's all we used to do was foist. It was if you hadn't had something foisted on you, you hadn't had a good weekend. That was
you couldn't afford to do anything other than foist, I suppose.
You'd have a good old foist, and then yeah, that's it. You see, because it was foisted on you. It didn't cost you anything. It was fine.
Talking of which, or some kind of rhyme. One of my brother-in-law is a writer, and he's got a keen ear for comedy. And one of his favourite lines in "Is It Ever Decreasing Circles" was, "Is it me or is it moist?"
Because moist is a good comedy word, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
As is, I've got a clip of what's the girl who used to be in Blue Peter and now she does ghost hunting programs.
Oh gosh, I can see her. Yes,
do you know what I mean,
her, darling? Yes, quite petite, and I could see a lovely face, lovely smile.
I can't remember.
Oh, it'll come back to me.
I've got a clip of her, and I mentioned the word gusset to her, and she just breaks into pieces. It was the most belly raucous love, which you didn't expect from her at all, really. But her name's going to drive me wild. Anyway, sorry, we digress. Yeah. So what happens is, I'll choose a comedy series. And a comedy episode one week.
Sorry to interrupt. Yvette Fielding.
Yvette Fielding, that's it. Yeah, lovely lady. Really nice, really nice. Yeah, put me off that, doesn't it?
No, carry on.
I choose an episode one week, and we both sit down and we watch it, and then independently come back and draw our own conclusions, as it were. And interestingly enough, they've not been wide of the mark. We've kind of been on the same page there or thereabouts with...
Closer than I would have thought, yes,
yeah, and me. In fact, there was a couple, if you want to go back through our archive, there's a couple where I thought, I can't believe how... that's a tractor going past, by the way, sorry about that. I can't believe how close in our thought process we were. Anyway, and then the following week, you choose one, and we'll watch that as well, and we give them marks out of 10 at the end. And that's the basic premise. It was my turn, wasn't it, this week, to choose one?
It most certainly was and is.
And I'll come clean. I'm going to come straight away clean on this one. I am a huge fan of this. In fact, I am just about to watch the series 5 finale, I think, which is where they're up to with this one. It's an American series called Silicon Valley, and it's basically, as you would expect, it's set in Silicon Valley in California, and it revolves around. A guy trying to get a new business off the ground, and I found it quite an eye-opener because you kind of think you know a little bit about Silicon Valley and about what it's like and what happens. I mean, I had no idea about incubators for a start, which are these places where they're generally houses, and these things do exist, where they get budding entrepreneurs together and put a roof over their head for a sort of stock option or whatever sort of kind of investment fee, and it's based around this incubator in Silicon Valley. I mean, that's basically it, isn't it? That's where we're at with this. And I'm interested to know, because you came to this fresh, didn't you? You'd not seen any of the episodes before.
Completely cold, and I have to say, I found the title a bit of a turn-off because shall I say, I've had my fingers a bit burnt, if I'm honest, by the IT crowd. They do call it IT crowd rather than the IT crowd, don't they?
The IT crowd, yeah. Really?
Yeah. And I think I worry that there's only so much mileage out of geeky types. We can go, ho, 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 they're geeky and they don't get the girl. And then you think, right, where are we going to go next? So I confess I came to this with a slightly heavy heart.
I am gobsmacked you said that about the IT crowd. But there
I,
you go.
I'd come back to it. If you nominated it for another week's episode where that was my homework that you set, I would go back to it. I would obey because you're the headmaster in this scenario.
Only 1 week or every alternate week?
Every other week. Yeah. And then you are I nearly said fag. That's an unfortunate. I was thinking of Tom Brown's School Days where you clean my shoes the alternate weeks.
Yeah.
And I hold you over the fire to set fire to your pants.
Hold my feet to the fire is the.
I'm sure in Tom Brown's School Days, doesn't he burn his pants, i.e. his derriere?
I don't know. I don't
Maybe I'm making up my own episode.
Yes. Maybe it's a mix of reading Tom Brown's School Days and what actually happened at school.
Well, yes, there is that. Yes,
I don't
it
know.
was quite a rough school I went to.
I don't know.
But yes, do you want to know more of my reaction at this stage?
Yeah, because all right. So you're saying the genre, you kind of think, oh, I'm not really quite sure. But how did you get on then? Come into it? Because I don't. We'll talk more about it in a second. But I think the situation in the sitcom here is well handled and could almost be secondary if you kind of buy into the characters, couldn't it? I guess really. How did you get on with that? Do you think?
Well, my reaction, I have to say, was extreme. But I'm extremely pleased that you recommended it. I thought it was fantastic. Beautiful writing. It within maybe not 30 seconds, within the first couple of minutes, it's certainly blown away any cobwebs and any worries about, there's only so far you can go with IT. At the end of the day, it's a great human drama, and it taps into classic things that you could probably trace back to, I don't know, Greek mythology even, the clashes of power, corruption.
Yeah.
These are geeky guys in their 20s, but suddenly they can be multi-millionaires overnight. And what does that do to someone? And also, what does it do to the people who are sort of pulling the strings? So, and fantastic lines. Sorry, you were going to say.
No, well, I was only going to say, if you like the plot and character development, the more it goes, I mean, to quote Blackadder, it twists and turns like a twisty-turny thing. It really. I mean, the episodic writing, how they link each episode together, and how that works through a whole series. You start off at the series thinking, how are they going to get 6 episodes out of this, and how's that going to move forward? And by the episode 5, you're thinking, I can't wait for the next series because of where they've left you at the end of that series.
Left you hanging.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it as well. Characters are really well drawn, aren't they? Don't you think? I really like, and the cast. I have to say, the cast I think are just stellar.
It's got everything has come together. Just crisp lines, great performing. And you were telling me just before we hit record that it's made the careers of a number of actors, and I can see why. It might be the other way around now, whereby people aspire to be on it. In fact, we'll get to that towards the end of the show. The kind of people who do actually line up to be in it, they're not necessarily actors, are they?
No.
In this particular episode, shall we hear a little clipette?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, again, I mean, this is a really freaky moment for us, isn't it? Because we just had a chat just before we started recording today.
Oh yeah, spooky.
And I said, I got some clips, and you said, I've got some suggestions of clips as well. I went, okay, what have you got? And we said the time code, and it was exactly the same clip, wasn't it?
5 minutes 30 into what are we on? Episode 4 of series 2.
Yeah,
no, that's wrong.
No, episode 1.
The next show.
This is the series opener for
episode 1 of series 2,
isn't it? Yeah,
yes. I'm getting ahead of myself.
And if you don't mind me, I'll say it because we both had the same thought. But we chose this one for people to listen to because it's just great comedy writing, isn't it? I mean, this could be in anything. It could be in any sitcom, and it would be worthy of any sitcom. But it's just like a kind of great. Would you call this like a building gag? Would you kind of like where it builds on? I don't know how you describe this one.
Yeah. It's. I'll tell you what it made me think of. It's a song that I've got to think of now. I hadn't previously recalled this for ages. Someone described it as at a fairground. There's a ride where you get inside this circular thing and it spins within itself.
Yes, yeah.
And then the whole damn thing spins. So you've got a double spin effect.
Yeah.
Wheels within wheels. So it's that kind of thing. I can't remember the song. It might come back to me. But it's forever tripping you up, and just when you think you've nailed it, it's the classic nailing jelly to the wall. You just think, I've got it now. I know where it's going, and it spins off again.
Have a listen. This is well, Peter Gregory has died,
as we'll learn.
But how?
He was in the Serengeti on safari, and he'd just gone into his tent when a hippo wandered into the camp.
Oh, wow. He was attacked by a hippo?
No, I guess the hippo started to charge when the guide grabbed his rifle and shot at it, but his aim was off, and
he shot Peter Gregory by accident?
Yeah.
no, he missed.
Oh.
But I guess the sound of the gun startled Peter, who ran out of his tent and
Ran right into the hippo?
no, the hippo was also startled by the noise and had run off prior to Peter exiting his tent.
So what happened to Peter?
He hadn't run in a long time, maybe ever. And, he just... That was it.
Just great writing, as we said before. I mean, it's just one of those. It's, you think you know the answer, and then they turn another corner. Peter Gregory was the guy. He was the head of a large company in Silicon Valley who'd already done stuff, and he was going to finance the guys with their project. But he dies, as we heard there. The sad thing about that is the guy who played Peter Gregory actually died in real life.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which is why they wrote that episode, and why there's the eulogy at the end and all the rest of it. Yeah, he died an untimely death from lung cancer, and I didn't realise either. And I just read an article about it. I thought, good grief, which was quite a nice. I mean, I know it's nothing new. It's been done several times in Coronation Street, to my knowledge. This
writing
idea.
someone out.
Yeah, if somebody dies, that they kill the character as well, and it's a nice way of saying goodbye and paying tribute as well. But yeah, I thought that was quite nice. And they reckon, talking about this series making people, they reckon that the guy who played Peter Gregory was just that. This was his breakthrough role,
right?
And sadly, it wasn't to be. But how strange we both chose that clip though. It was like a standout moment in the episode that.
Yeah,
it was.
That's just a beautiful gag.
Yeah,
so well constructed.
To me, the two barriers to this, and I think they overcome both of them, because you can take on board as much or as little as you like. There's a lot of jargon in there. There's a lot of geeky Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, I learned about Series A, whatever it is, funding.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say is the business jargon as well. They were like the kind of two streams. Yeah, the Series A financing term sheets. I had to look up down round, which is
when you argue down.
No, where you devalue your shares, or you sell shares that previously were higher for a lower amount that were your. I'm trying to describe. I don't really know. Side bonuses, key man clause, all of that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of technical jargon.
Oh yeah, well, data compression. You have to understand. Well, I think it's better if you understand data compression from looking back at. I've only read the précis for Series 1, but you'll know.
Yeah,
that is, it's all built around that, isn't it? The Pied Piper. What is that? An app.
Yeah, it's an app that, I mean, basically it becomes the new internet, because previously huge files can be compressed into tiny files, and it makes the whole thing much more efficient, quicker, more viable, and
you can fit more onto your phone.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like a game changer for the internet kind of thing. That's the whole premise, and that runs through all 5 series of the. You're right. You've got to understand that to carry on with it. Do you think it gets in the way? Do you think No,
because I was just going to say my form at the moment, in as much as I have a formula for this show of the prep I do, is to. As I did with this show, watch it all the way through in one go, not having done any reading around it, so see how much I can catch up with. and then watch a second time, stop, start, allowing myself to look on Ms. Wikipedia and all of that. And I mean, the good news is that I got the gist of it the first time through, but I got the subtleties much more second time through, having done a bit of work. I even went away to remind myself the story of Pied Piper, because I thought there must be a reason why they've called the app Pied Piper, and presumably they're kind of leading these venture capitalists down like they were leading the rats away or leading the children away. Do you think there's that dimension to why it's called Pied Piper?
Yeah, I think I can't remember whereabouts it is, whether it's before the episode we watched or after. But I think it's before, it may be in series 1. But there's a whole episode about the name, and nobody wants the guy whose company is Richard Hendricks. Nobody wants him to call it. They're all going, "What a terrible name! That's just an awful name. Why are you calling it? You call it anything but Pied Piper." And one of the things I liked about the series, Adrian, as well, is that a lot of the company names, the made up stuff, because they put some of the real world Silicon Valley into it as well. But things like Hooli, and was it TechCrunch? I don't know what's real and what isn't. I don't know whether TechCrunch that they won they got the funding for.
I think there is genuine one. Yeah, TechCrunch Disrupt.
That's it. Yeah, and so I'm sitting there thinking, which is that it merges, and like Hooli obviously isn't a real company, but could be, couldn't it? You could imagine Hooli as a real company.
Oh yeah, and they've got the corporate sort of branding down to a T, haven't they? There's a scene change where you don't. For a moment, I thought I was in an ad break, right. And it turns out you're watching a corporate video,
which Gavin Belson destroyed. I don't care what kind of disease she's got, he says.
They start arguing as this child in the video. Again, you're not laughing at the child suffering; you're laughing at the corporate nonsense around.
She tries to ramp it up, doesn't she? The advertising exec. She says, "I think she's got something," and
I think it's cancer.
And then like he doesn't buy that. She goes, "I think she's got cancer as well." I'm trying to ramp up. This is really serious. I love that kind of thing. The crossover between real life and the series has got to the. I don't know. Is this the point of being ridiculous now? But I didn't realise this. But if you look on LinkedIn, are you on LinkedIn?
I am, yeah.
There are profiles for all of the people. If you look up Richard Hendricks on LinkedIn, it says
his own profile.
CEO of Pied Piper.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Gavin Belson's on there as well. He becomes the arch villain as the series goes on, as you can imagine, because at the end of the episode he's about to sue Richard Hendricks. But all of these people they've all got their own profiles on LinkedIn, which I think it's just that little touch, isn't it, that just kind of makes it.
Yeah, they could just step out the screen, couldn't they? Like Broadway, Danny Rose, or whichever one it is.
Yeah,
The Purple Rose of Cairo, Woody Allen's film, where the characters come out of the screen, back into it. And you wouldn't bat an eyelid. It must be time for another clip, surely. Are we going to agree on this one? Or?
We did as well, didn't we?
I think we did.
It was really freaky again because it's a very male, as Silicon Valley is, and there's some lawsuits to pay testament to that. It's a very male environment, and they have put female characters in there. There's a huge debate raging about who these characters are in real life.
I have my own theory on one or two.
Yeah, and there was a lot of them. I think you might not know the real person. They were saying that Laurie Bream, who's one of the characters we're going to hear in a second, who is the head of a venture capitalist organisation.
She replaces the deceased Peter Gregory.
That's right. Yeah, she takes over from Peter Gregory's role. A lot of people are saying she's firmly and quite heavily based on Marissa Mayer, who is the CEO of Yahoo.
Right.
Now I went on YouTube to have a look at her. I couldn't see a huge, because they were saying the mannerisms, the way she speaks is very similar.
Right.
Although I guess it's all very overstated, isn't it, for this?
Not exactly flattering to. Did you say Maria Meyer?
Marissa.
If that were
Marissa Meyer.
Marissa, sorry. Nice name, Marissa. Because she is quite Laurie Bream, this fictional character, is virtually robotic, isn't she?
Yeah. And she's talking to a character who becomes very important. Actually, both of these characters become very important as the show goes on. Which is, I don't know if that's a deliberate thing to give it more female appeal and less, so making it less of a male environment. I don't really know whether that's a deliberate thing. But you kind of get a feel for the way that these two are interacting. This particular scene was she'd just been made CEO, hasn't she? I think.
Monica, Peter Gregory is dead.
Yes.
We need to seem competitive now more than ever to our investors as well as to the industry at large.
Well, I mean, Pied Piper is probably the hottest early investment in town right now, and we have them.
Do we? But why then are they speaking to other firms about investing in their Series A?
No. I just told them to sit tight for a day or two until we sorted things out.
It seems that advanced a sense of uncertainty, and now we're at risk of losing their round. This could jeopardize the firm and, by extension, your career here, Monica, as an associate partner.
Well, I guess I was just kind of in shock.
Monica, Peter Gregory is dead.
I'm getting the message. I don't know about you, Shane. I know you've got kind of hawk's ears on these things, but I think Peter Gregory is dead. I couldn't be 100% sure. Reading between the lines. I have in the past, in all seriousness, suffered from plot blindness, but I think it's a testament to the quality of the writing here. I didn't lose the plot.
You didn't miss that point
occasion.
at all, did you? Really?
No, I didn't. I picked up on that.
Peter Gregory is dead. It's lovely to watch that awkwardness as well, isn't it? That she has. There's something about you don't feel that you're. I think it's because she's so powerful that you don't you feel like you're taking advantage of her by laughing at the way that she is in that way. You know what I mean? Because she's ultimately and hugely powerful in the series, but great acting as well. Easy to overdo that one, don't you think?
Yeah, but there's some. Obviously, we're just hearing the audio on this being an audio podcast. But if you're to see the pictures, there's an intensity into the staring nature of the eyes. That everything is hard work to her. You imagine the cogs whirring inside the brain behind those eyes.
Yeah.
Somehow even it is a testament to everything. Again, performance, writing, direction, the lot, editing. That you still sense there is a human in there somehow, despite me having said, and it almost sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but despite that robotic surface, you still don't think, oh, she's got no feelings at all. It's almost like she's got too many and she can't process them.
It's about processing it, isn't it? It's about, she'll kind of, and like very bluntly say to people, that's not important, or,
oh yeah.
I don't see that that's relevant. And you kind of think, wow, you'd never say. But I guess it's that kind, like you say, that sort of that inability to connect on a human level.
But she doesn't know what to edit out.
Exactly,
social norms. Yeah.
And let's say that people were saying, the Marissa Mayer from Yahoo is very blunt and to the point. I suppose if you're in those kind of situations, you have to be, don't you? If you got to that kind of level. So some of the other cast as well, I think is quite interesting. The way that they've written them is that you know the character traits of the main characters. You know that Richard Hendricks, he's a kind of nerdy guy. He's very uncomfortable. He's always very anxious. He's not. There's that wonderful scene. We didn't put the clip in. There's that wonderful scene where Erlich has been kind of geeing him up and saying, you're touched with Elvis dust, and he goes in and he says, you don't know who you're talking to. I'm covered in dust. And it makes
he forgets the Elvis bit.
It makes sense in his head, but it doesn't kind of. But it's that kind of nerdy, trying to survive in that kind of corporate world. You kind of get a real sense of that as well. We didn't see much of Jared. Did you see that the character Jared, who's his kind of right hand man? He's that very.
Oh yes, he's got very economical. I think he only had a couple of lines in this.
Yeah.
But they left him in reception at one point. Presumably he can't be trusted to go into a meeting with venture capitalists.
He becomes a much bigger character in they obviously see there's a place for him in later episodes. He becomes a much bigger character. He's a kind of very loyal but very precise and obedient, and again, difficulty dealing. A lot of them have difficulty dealing with the relationship side of business, which is what it's about. I quite like that, because that kind of takes it away from, as you say, you're not. There's only so much you can do with the I'm geeky and I'm awkward, but it has to be in a context, doesn't it? And it's I'm geeky and I'm awkward, and I'm trying to achieve this in business, and so I need to. There's a kind of need for them to be able to overcome and to be able to deal with it. The guy who plays Dinesh.
I was going to mention him.
Well, I really weirdly, we just watched a couple of movies the other day, and one of them was a film called The Big Sick, which is a semi-autobiographical. Try to say
Semi-autobiographical.
Yeah, that's one of those as well.
One of those.
And I didn't realise his background and the fact that I thought he was born in America, but he was actually born in Pakistan, and then his parents moved to America.
Well, there is a reference to that. I mean, I can't do it word for word because we'll start a racial incident. But do you remember there's a beautiful exchange between Dinesh and Guilfoyle at the top?
They're like that. That is the dynamic with those two.
But more beautiful still, I have to say, forgive my hormones. Is it Nicole or Nicola? I can't read my own writing. I think it's Nicole Stein approaches these guys. They're at a baseball stadium. It's a kind of corporate love fest.
Yeah.
Or almost like speed dating for venture capitalists, isn't it? Or, they're fishing around for people to work with. And Nicole Stein approaches these two geeky guys, Dinesh, you've just been talking about, and Guilfoyle. Dinesh shakes her hand. She says, hi, I'm Nicole Stein. Absolutely beautiful woman. I would have just melted if she'd approached me. And she said, I lead the growth team at Stern Taylor, which is the venture capitalist. And Dinesh manages to shake her hand, and Guilfoyle just stands there with his hands by his side. He's been approached by this woman who's got access to millions upon millions of dollars. Then they should be sort of basically bowing and scraping before her. And they start having a row over who's the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer.
Yeah. That is how they are. That dynamic kind of works. You never tire of that as things go on. It's quite interesting.
I tell you what, sorry, just quickly, hold that thought, whatever you're about to say. But before we move on, it reminded me of David Brent in The Office, Ricky Gervais, of course, and his tensions with Gareth, whereby Brent's always saying he's the assistant to the manager, and he says, I'm the assistant manager. Yeah. Massive gulf between those two. You're either a secretary or you're the second in command who takes over.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And I was just going to say one more clip. Which we talked about the crossover between reality and fiction, which they pull off so well. And one of the things that might have escaped people's attention is the eulogy to Peter Gregory quite near the end, where the people who are doing the eulogising are actually real CEOs from Silicon Valley companies, which we'll hear in this clip now. And in case you're wondering, the guy who's going on about Snapchat is actually Evan Spiegel, who is the guy who owns Snapchat.
Peter was one of the few who genuinely took action to use technology to help humanity thrive. But how exactly can we quantify another human's contributions to mankind? Let's break it down into its 3 component elements.
I met Peter when he was thinking about investing in my company, Zetasphere. Although I think he was hesitant after his disappointing initial return from Snapchat. He came on board anyway, and every month we would meet.
Peter was always an honest man, and I know that if Peter were here with us today, he would say that he was not disappointed in Snapchat. And he would forgive you, Lev, for your misunderstanding. That's just the kind of guy that Peter was. Warm, generous, and not disappointed in Snapchat.
Actually, I have to say, Peter Gregory might be disappointed in Snapchat now. I happen to be speaking to a technology journalist who said there are concerns. But anyway, and that's how real it is. But and it was only just before we started recording, Shane, that you told me that was the genuine Mr. Snapchat.
Yeah.
So I had missed that. So that's just a bonus. I think actually you've got to be very careful. There certainly wasn't a problem there because I didn't spot even that he wasn't an actor. But I think... you know about jumping the shark, don't you?
Yes, yeah, from
That
Happy
phrase.
Days.
And we'll just very quickly explain, although I think our audience are up to speed. Jumping the shark is something that happened in Happy Days, a sitcom. Would it be called a sitcom? It was a sitcom.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, or light entertainment comedy.
Yeah, back in the 70s, and it ran for ages and ages. And the feeling was that it was a bit desperate. The episode where they start jumping over sharks, and that's become a website, hasn't it, for comedies that go on too long. But we're definitely not in that ballpark. But I was going to say, when shows start getting stars on as themselves, I have a worry. It sets off a flashing red light on the dashboard. Oh, hang on, are they starting to jump the shark?
Yeah.
Especially if these people can't act. But this guy obviously could, because I didn't spot he was the real deal. Am I setting homework? Did you say?
We've got to
do star rating.
We've got to give them our stars out of 5 each. We've got. Shall I go
Well, you go
first? Because
first.
I was a
definitely.
real gentleman, wasn't I? Right out of character last week. I'm not going to muck about with this one. I'm going to give this a 5 because I just love it. I can't get enough of it when I hear, and I think there's a 6th series has been green light lit for making. You just kind of think, I've got to be there. I've got to watch it. I think it's one of the jewels in HBO's crown, most definitely. I'd give it a 5-star.
Now you're making me feel bad because I decided on a 4-star simply because is anything perfect? And if I give it 5, there's nowhere to go. If I come across a better show, well, I suppose I could give that 5.5 out of 5. But I'll tell you what, as a thank you to you and a concession, I will give it 4.5.
That's good enough.
That's not bad at all, is it?
Yeah, and your reasoning, I think you can't fault your reasoning. I'm just being gung-ho about it, that's all.
Well, I think the audience will pick up on your utter addiction to this series.
I'm going to have to. When I've seen the end of Series 5, I'm going to have to go back and watch it all again, I think, because I've realised
you've aroused your interest again, haven't you?
Well, I've just realised how much I've missed by analysing it critically. I'm kind of thinking, I never, like the guy from Snapchat and all the rest of it. I didn't realise all that kind of stuff had gone on, and you watch it in a kind of different light, I guess now. But yeah, so thanks for that.
Yeah.
Hey, 9.5. That's got to be a top score, hasn't it? So far, I would have thought.
Yeah, and it's the first week you got the maths right as well. So
yeah, I wrote it down.
10 out of 10 for maths, 9.5 for the show.
11 out of 10 for maths.
What's that in percentage terms?
Yeah. Anyway, come on, you can't wait to play Headmaster, can you?
No, I can't, particularly as I am. I mean, if you're addicted to this, I'm addicted to Stuart Lee. Now, I think we should cast the net wide to anything that can come under the category of comedy.
Yeah.
And he's most certainly, he's a stand-up comedian. So far, we haven't touched stand-up comedy. I think we'd be missing a trick if we didn't at least explore that from time to time. That's my personal view.
Well, he has done stand-up comedy in a series format, hasn't he? So in the same way, if you were going to, was it Stuart Lee's comedy vehicle? Is that one of his?
That's the series. That's what. That's part of your homework.
Oh well, that's
Yes.
a series, isn't it? So that
Yeah.
in the same way that if I said, I'm trying to think of a similar kind of thing that's been done, but where you have a comedy series, I think that's fair game. I know what you mean. It is just stand-up, isn't it? There's no sketches or anything, is there, in this?
Depends what you call sketch. Not conventional sketches. There are cutaways to, because it's Stuart Lee, to thoughtful deconstruction of comedy. I'd be very interested to know how you're going to react to this. But we should say without. Yes. Actually, can I just reverse for a sec? Because have we said how people can see Silicon Valley? Because I think it's nice to involve our audience as far as possible to try and dissect something on the Comedy Slab that is accessible, that other people can see. So did you mention HBO? You probably did.
Well, with all HBO series, I think this is the case, and as we go on, we'll probably guess otherwise. In the UK, if you're listening to this podcast in the UK, certainly you can go on to Amazon Video, in the same way that, was it last week's, I think, was on Amazon Video as well.
What, the John Cleese thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you can download each episode for about £2 something or other, I think, as well. So you can see all 5 series and download those. So I'll put the link in the description anyway, so people will be able to link onto that, no problem.
Right. This one is available, the Stuart Lee comedy vehicle, specifically Series 2, Episode 4. That's Series 2, Episode 4. I know that's in the middle of nowhere. We'll get to that in a moment. But that is currently, as we speak, certainly in the UK, BBC iPlayer. You'll find that on for the next 5 months. And we're speaking sometime in August. I haven't quite worked out the date, but so that should see you out of the 2018, indeed. I'm pleased to see that. It's got a long tail, as we say. So Stuart Lee's comedy vehicle, BBC iPlayer, Series 2, Episode 4. I'm pretty sure everything's on DVD, those comedy vehicles. So if you're outside the UK or for whatever reason, blah, blah, blah. The reason it's in the middle of nowhere, as it were, Series 2, Episode 4, is that it was a lucky dip for me, because I like all of them. But this one is called Stand Up. And it's almost his cussedness that he's not standing up on this occasion. He is a stand-up comedian, as in the art form of one man on stage, one woman on stage, one person and a mic and gags. He's sitting down.
Right.
And you might just there's a musical twist, which I think you, Shane, as a musician will like, but you don't have to be a musician to enjoy it. But he is, without doubt, a thoughtful comedian. He's not your average stand-up. But I'd be fascinated to know what you make of it next time on The Slab.
Me too, because I'll be honest with you, I've studiously avoided his work.
Thought you might.
I have, yeah. So, and it'll be, and again, you look at it in different eyes, don't you? When you sit down to do it for the Comedy Slab, you kind of you look at it in greater depth than you would normally. So, no, I'm kind of looking forward to that. It'd be interesting to catch up.
I was thinking of the George Michael album. He did one, bless him, called "Listen Without Prejudice." See if you can watch without prejudice. Whatever you've heard or felt about Stuart Lee, sit down like I did with Silicon Valley, as it were, cold, and try and start there without prejudice.
I will. So that'll be in the next episode of the comedy Slab podcast with Shane O'Connor and Adrian Lacey. Hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have, subscribe, like, do all the lovely things that we love you to do, because it just makes life so much easier if you do. and
our lives are unbearable if you don't do those things. So don't feel guilty. But follow us on Twitter, I should say, at Comedy Slab. That's at Comedy Slab.
And we're on iTunes and soon to be on Facebook as well. I've got to get that sorted out this week. So hopefully by the time you come round to this episode, we'll have that page set up on Facebook as well, and we'll be able to put some of the links and all of the great stuff as well that goes along with every episode. But in the meantime, thanks for being with us. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your comedy, and if you've got any suggestions, by the way, kick them in our direction, because we're always looking. We're trying sort of look and get stuff for you guys to have a look at. But if anybody's got any suggestions, always welcome those as well, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And Madam Google's already found us. You only have to put Comedy Slab in. We've only been going in the first 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's coming up top of the Google pops. So very easy to find us there. But you could put suggestions on the Electric YouTube or on Twitter, as I say, at Comedy Slab. You suggest a show for us to dissect.